On today's show, what do the Warriors have to do to repeat? Can the Clippers finally make the most out of Kawhi and Paul George in that duo? And who else has a chance to win it all? We dive into the biggest questions for the NBA's contenders here on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to a Friday Locked On NBA, your daily podcast on the NBA. However you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with Adam Mares. We'll get to our top breakout candidates for 2022 later in the show. But we'll start with training camp beginning in a couple of weeks, and we're going to look around the league's top contenders and answer the biggest questions facing each team. Let's just dive right in, Adam. We'll start with the defending champs, the Golden State Warriors. Adam, what's your biggest question about the Dubs and their chance to repeat?
How quickly can the young guys come along? I mean, you're talking about Moses Moody. You're obviously talking about Wiseman, who's the biggest question mark here. So I just want to see, what do those guys look like? Kuminga as well. Those guys, to me, are going to have to be impact players. Last year, they were impact in the regular season, especially in the middle parts when the roster got a little bit thin. And I thought they stepped up and did a good job, but they clearly were not inside the circle of trust by the time the playoffs came around. So next year's regular season will be a lot about developing those guys and pressure testing them so that when you get to the playoffs, they can play heavy minutes because there's no other options. I think all three of those guys, your best case scenario is that all three of them are in the rotation in the playoffs, and any one of them that does not make it, you probably have to find somebody before the playoffs to fill a role that you're hoping they can do. So to me, easily them, that's the big question.
Yeah, you look at Golden State's offseason. I know they added Dante DiVincenzo and JaMychal Green, who are players that I like for them a lot, but you look at what they lost. They lose Gary Payton II. They lose Otto Porter Jr. They lose Nemanja Bjelica. They lose Juan Toscano-Anderson. They lose Damian Lee. Like a lot of guys who were veteran presences in that locker room, who Steve Kerr trusted over the course of the regular season. Those guys aren't necessarily huge game changers, even though you can argue Gary Payton was a major game changer.
Oh, I think I strongly disagree with that. They're huge game changers.
You say they're not like all-stars. They are game changers. You're right. But this is sort of the direction Golden State is going in. Yeah, you replace a little bit of that with DiVincenzo and Green, but not all of that. And you're gonna have to rely on big minutes for Kuminga, for Moody, for Wiseman, and I do think that a lot. I agree with you. I think a big part of their regular season is going to be just putting them on the stress test, and I think they're going to focus more on that and getting them ready for a playoff run than even winning games. I think they're just talented enough at the top that they're going to win games. They're going to make the playoffs. It's not going to be an issue, but they might not win as many games as they did last year. Now, of course, they'll have Klay Thompson for the full season as everybody's healthy. Draymond Green will presumably be healthy, so you'll have your top three. But yeah, I think a lot of the regular season is going to be a little bit of just trial and error with the second year guys and trying to get them ready. So I'm with you, and I think they're going to need them. I think they're going to need them to win it all this year.
I agree. I think they're not going to win as many games as they could. At least the best route for them is to not win as many games as you could, because you need to place those guys in scenarios where they will succeed and fail, and inevitably they'll fail a few times, and it'll cost you a win or two.
Here's our next contender. We've got the LA Clippers, who, of course, are getting Kawhi Leonard back, and they're getting Paul George back. And that's my biggest question about the Clippers, Adam. Can they just stay healthy? Here's a quick stat for you. Kawhi and Paul George, out of 472 possible games that they could have played in the 3 years that they've been in LA, they have played 242 combined games. That's 51% of the games available to them that they have played together. Yeah. But if they're healthy, if Kawhi is healthy, who of course didn't play all last season, if Paul George is healthy, that team is loaded. They've got 30 guys who could play on the perimeter in the playoffs. They're probably as deep as anybody as long as they have their top guys available. And if they can stay healthy, I would put them maybe as the top contender, the favorite in the Western Conference.
I think it's the right one to say health because of how big it is for him. But I'll go a different direction. It's tied to the health part of it. And that is that, to me, the Clippers are the team that is the most malleable of all teams in the NBA. They can go out, they can throw out a roster that is 5 forwards. That makes a coherent roster between Batum and Mann and Marcus Morris, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. So you can be this very switchy, all 5 positions switch and guard and score, or you could put out some speed on the court and, get a John Wall and a Reggie Jackson out there dynamic. You can put a lot of shooters on the court, with Kennard and some of the other guys that they have. So they're a team that is built to be able to solve every problem. The question is, you need a lot of reps doing different things to be ready to say what is needed in the playoffs. We have experience doing this and we know what to do. And to me, that's the question for the Clippers. Are they going to be healthy enough during the regular season to be able to test all those things out? Because I feel somewhat confident that they'll be healthy at the end of the season. But will it be one of those things where some of their best lineups haven't played together, or the one lineup you need to beat the Warriors has never played together, so you play the Warriors? To me, that will be the thing that we probably won't know until the playoffs start.
Ty Lue is a master experimenter. He just has such a good pulse of when, to use certain lineups and other things. We saw that when he was with Cleveland in those finals runs, but I'm with you. That's a huge thing for them. They're also a team that if you talk about options, like if they feel like they need to add more size, they've got dudes that they could trade, right? Like this is a team that could they could bunch together a couple different contracts and make a move mid-season if they feel like that's something that they need to do. So I like the Clippers' options. Health, like you and I agree, is the main thing. Let's go to our next contender, the number 1 seed in the West last year. It's the Phoenix Suns. And there's a lot of directions we can go with Phoenix. I think we can talk about Chris Paul and his age. We could talk about whether or not these guys like Mikal Bridges or Cameron Johnson or take a leap. Is the DeAndre Ayton thing just a little weird after the contract dispute? But I'm just going to go almost with a kind of catch-all here. Are the last couple of playoff losses just going to haunt this team? Is this just sort of can you come back from something like that? It's one thing to lose to Milwaukee in the finals, Adam, but it's another thing to lose to Dallas in the semifinals. The way that they did, that Game 7 was so bad. It was such an atrocious performance by then. Is that going to haunt them? Is there just too much bad vibes happening in Phoenix?
I like it. This would have been my question for them as well. It is, I would almost phrase it by, just what's the mood? What's the personality of this team? I thought they had a great personality last year, very serious. I would even say cocky, but not cocky in a bad way. They earned it. They came into every arena like they were the baddest team in the NBA. And all the way up until Game 7 of the conference semifinals, they proved it. They walked the walk all the way up until they didn't and lost by 50 points to Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks. So the question is, what personality take this year? To me, they were a team on the rise, and last year was the year. Now, is there a way to approach it with a little bit more humility, but the same level of confidence? That's the line that I feel like that team has to walk. But a lot of times when you take away that bravado, you also lose a little bit of confidence. So that's what I'm looking to see from them. Do they have it? Because on paper, to me, this is still a great team, still a top 3-4 team in the NBA and a true contender. Sometimes the ghosts of playoff past just never leave you.
And that's when you need a shakeup, right? We saw it with the Clippers. We saw it this last summer with the Jazz. Like, I wonder if this was a team that was willing to throw in some pieces to go get Kevin Durant. Brooklyn, turns out, was not going to trade him. Would they be willing to kind of cobble together those same pieces to make another kind of move? I don't know.
And we also know, Wes, that Chris Paul has a shelf life on teams. And usually it's not – 3 years, are we still in that window before it expires and his pushing everyone just becomes annoyance? I don't know, but it's one of those things that everywhere Chris Paul has gone, I don't want to say he's worn out his welcome because he's a Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer, and he's a great player. But there is something about it just seems like it gets a little tired over time if you don't get over the hump. And if things go poorly, I suspect that relationship will be a little different.
We got time for one more. I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets here. And my question is simple. Can Jamal Murray just return to being an all-star player? And I'll be even more specific than an all-star player. I think for Denver to win it all this year, Jamal Murray needs to get back to being a top 20, top 25 player at the worst. If he is that, Adam, I love Denver's team. And I think they're as deep as Golden State, the Clippers, if Jamal Murray is that level player, because you have arguably the best player in the league in Nikola Jokic. And if Jamal Murray can kind of just be that guy again, that partner that he needs, then you've got Michael Porter Jr. presumably healthy. You got Aaron Gordon. You got a bunch of depth on that roster, but they need Jamal Murray.
So the interesting thing with the Nuggets here is they have the best defense they've ever had on paper with Aaron Gordon, Bruce Brown, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I'd say those are probably the three of the 4 best defenders they've ever had, along maybe 3 of the best 5, along with Paul Millsap and Gary Harris. But those 3 represent collectively, I think, the best defensive lineup they've ever had, the most talent they've ever had, with Michael Porter, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon surrounding Nikola Jokic, Bones Highland coming off the bench. But they also have the least amount of continuity that they've ever had in the Jokic era. And I'm very curious for this part of it. The last time Jamal Murray was on the court, the only players on the Nuggets roster that were in the rotation were Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter, and Aaron Gordon. Everybody else who will be on the Nuggets roster is new to the team or to the rotation since the last time he was playing. So this is a very different, as much as the core 4 pieces are the same, everybody else is different. And I'm curious to see if that continuity takes time, if that sort of chemistry takes time, or if it's just a matter of, hey, this is the most talented Nuggets team we've ever seen, therefore they should be the best Nuggets team we've ever seen.
I just think that 2-man game between Jokic and Murray is so strong when we last left it, the way we saw it, that everything else you could just sort of build around it. It's not quite to the level of Golden State's trio of Steph and Draymond and Clay, but it's a little like that where, okay, like everybody kept talking about Golden State's continuity last year. That was not a team that knew each other. Like, to your same point, like Klay Thompson never played with those guys when he got back after 2 years with most of that team. But the chemistry at the top was so strong that it almost like trickles down to the rest of the roster. I wonder if that's almost what Jokic and Murray can do. But like I said, they're going to need Jamal Murray to be Jamal Murray again. We'll talk about the Eastern Conference next here on Locked On NBA. But first, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your pro and college football betting needs and sports information this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week's games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all of your sport wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and even golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Giannis. Which NBA players move the betting line the most this season? Locked On and the BetOnline odds makers present the NBA top 50 most valuable players starting on September 19th. Find it on Locked On NBA, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. Back here talking about the biggest questions for the NBA's title contenders. We just got through the Western Conference, Adam. Let's move now to the Eastern Conference. Later on in the show, we'll count down our top breakout candidates for the 2022 season. But let's start at the top in the Eastern Conference with the team that just made the NBA Finals. It's the Boston Celtics. And my question for them is simple. Can they rinse and repeat? Can they repeat what worked, Adam? Because you obviously had that growth from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but you also had a really healthy season from Robert Williams III, which I don't know that you can bank on that every single year. You had a great health season from Al Horford. That defense seemed to click. Marcus Smart with a Defensive Player of the Year season. We've seen chemistry issues in the past with this group. Jaylen Brown, with that being in the trade rumors a little bit over the offseason. Again, is it going to be good vibes? Is there going to be a hangover from losing in the finals? And can you just sort of repeat what worked health-wise for Boston? It's a broad question, but that is the question to me.
I think it's a great question. And, they remind me a lot of the Suns from last year, coming off of a finals appearance, coming up just a little bit short. And, they have all of the makings of a team that is ready to have their best year. The way the Suns had their best year, their best season last year, even though it didn't work out in the playoffs. And the question for me is, you kind of hit on this. The core pieces of this team have been together, and they've had some ups and downs. Last year, you get a new coach, you get some new blood in there, some new old blood like Al Horford in there. This year, I think they did a good job, adding Derek White, who's still relatively, new to that roster. Yeah. I believe you had a Gallinari. You had just enough pieces to the mix here to make it a little bit fresh, a little bit inspiring that you push through. But to me, like we saw with the Phoenix Suns, it actually adds a little more pressure too to think, hey, yes, Jason Tatum has a lot of time left. Yes, Jaylen Brown does. Al Horford, though, key piece of this. Some of the other guys, key pieces that are uncertain beyond next year. So I look at it and I go, next year, I expect the question for them is just, can they maximize their window? Because to me, like the Suns last year, it's their best chance.
I love the word you used before, pressure. This is not a team that historically with this core group responds well to pressure, right? They got to the finals last year, did not play their A game, did not play their B game in the finals, you could argue. Obviously, you got to give credit where it's due to Golden State, but they left a lot on the court, I thought. They barely got through an injured Milwaukee team, barely got through an injured Miami team, and then ended up getting smoked by the Warriors at the tail end of the final series. Can they handle that pressure? Because now they're the top dog in the East, right? Like, you just went to the NBA Finals. You got a target on your back. The other team is the Milwaukee Bucks, obviously. And this one's very simple. It's sort of similar to the Clippers. Are you getting a healthy Chris Middleton? Obviously, he was injured in the playoffs last year, had offseason surgery on his wrist. Report now that he's might not be available for the start of the season. Now, for Milwaukee, that doesn't really matter. This is a team built for the playoffs, a team that cares about the postseason more than the regular season. But you could argue if Chris Middleton doesn't get hurt, Milwaukee goes to the finals, and they probably win it. Like, I thought they were the best team in the league. They probably repeat. Can they stay healthy? It's an older team. Can they stay healthy, and can they make it 2 out of 3?
For me, you actually highlighted the wrong player for health, in my opinion, and that is you Middleton. I think he'll be healthy. I think he'll be back. I mean, who knows? Injuries happen; they pop up. But the guy to me who's sneaky important to them who wasn't healthy last year was Brook Lopez, and it was a back injury, and he's also in year 14. So it's a little different when you start talking about players that are a little bit older, 34 years old. He's so key to what they do. On both ends of the court, but especially on the defensive end, that he's so key that I think you're going to need a good season out of him, even though the regular season matters probably a little bit less for Milwaukee. They've been there. They've done that. They know how to win in the regular season. But if you want to go up against the Titans of the East, and there are Titans in the East this year, you want to go up against them, I think he's going to be a key piece, and we'll see what he has left in the tank.
The Philadelphia 76ers, got to talk about them. And my question for them is James Harden still elite? Is James Harden still that guy? Reporting around Philadelphia, around James Harden, is that he's recommitted to his body, recommitted to the work, whatever. We've heard all this stuff before. I'll believe it when I see it, Adam. Is he still that guy? Because, look, I like Philadelphia's moves. PJ Tucker, D'Anthony Melton, Daniel House. They added some guys, but I don't like their depth as much as Boston's, as much as Milwaukee's. But to me, like, if their top dudes are their top dudes, like, they have such a high ceiling. I think their 2 best guys are probably, at best, as long as Harden is that guy, better than Boston's best 2 guys, better than Milwaukee's best 2 guys, and that's going to be what carries them to the finals if they get there. So to me, I know Joel Embiid's going to be that guy. Can James Harden be that guy? Again,
I think I'm buying the reports, by the way, and we do Muscle Watch every year, and I'm never buying them. I'm buying them with James Harden for a couple important reasons. One, his career kind of depends on him having a bounce back from some of he's not taken seriously as a guy that puts a lot of work into his body, but we know that if they're around this age, a lot of guys kind of start to see the end. And a lot of times it'll spark a second run for them because it's like, hey, I want to extend this. I'm going to buy that James Harden is at that phase. But here's what's interesting. Last time James Harden and Daryl Morey teamed up, James Harden won MVPs. And I'm really curious. Last year, neck and neck, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid ends up going to Jokic. I'm curious what the vibes are like in Philadelphia because I expect a lot of regular season wins, but I kind of see some MVP candidacy being divided between James Harden and Joel Embiid, who in my opinion are going to be 2 of the top MVP candidates this year. The team is built around Daryl Morey has a philosophy in basketball. It's maximize the skill set of your best player or players. This year they have 2 great players, and this roster is built for both of them to shine. But what happens when we get to January and everyone's saying, James Harden's the MVP. Wait, maybe it's Embiid. And all of a sudden, you have this little rivalry. I think Embiid took that MVP race very seriously, maybe an unhealthy amount of serious.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if this next season, when it's with your own teammate, that can be some murky waters for Doc Rivers to have to like, hey, this is all good stuff, not bad stuff.
I love that you're planting this seed now. I love it.
It's going to happen.
Let's remember it. I love this. This is going to bloom into a great conspiracy tree in a few more months, Adam. I'm so happy about this. I'm
so confident in this, by the way. Like, I would almost call this a lock. They're gonna be good. Those 2 are gonna score an enormous amount of points, and it's inevitably gonna be a conversation.
I really like Philly's roster this year, and I'm with you. I'm kind of believing the James Harden stuff, but yeah, I like that roster. I think they're a legit contender. The last one in the Eastern Conference that we'll get to is the Miami Heat. Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Obviously, lose PJ Tucker, but you got Jimmy Butler. He's that dude in the playoffs. Bam Adebayo's only going to get better. Tyler Hero's only going to get better. They're deep. My thing is, do they make a move in the middle of the year, Adam? That to me is my top question, because they were obviously trying to get in on the Kevin Durant stuff, to a lesser degree trying to get in on the Donovan Mitchell stuff. This is a team that obviously wants to pair Jimmy Butler with another kind of superstar level player. Do they make that move midseason? Maybe not even for a superstar, but just another high-level contributor. That to me is my main question for them, because if they don't make that move, I don't know that this core is as good as the other ones we were talking about in the East.
Yeah, my top question was just how well does Kevin Durant integrate with Jimmy Butler and the rest of the roster there? So I guess I'm taking a step a little bit beyond you here.
I like it.
I'm already assuming it happens. Look, I don't know if it's going to be Kevin Durant, but I'm with you. This is a team to me that they're going to have a great regular season. They have arguably the best coach in the NBA. They have a great culture, and they have a superstar in Jimmy Butler who's going to make sure everybody treats the Tuesday in October like it's Game 7 of the NBA Finals. So they're going to be a team that is focused and it has a good regular season. But I have to believe that they look at the landscape in the NBA and think Milwaukee, you've got the Warriors, you've got Boston, you've got some teams that, at least on paper and probably in reality, are a little bit better, but you also have an opportunity to go big game hunting. And we know Pat Riley likes nothing more than to pick up a superstar. So for me, what move do they make, and how does that affect the team halfway through the season? Even if it's a smaller move, not a Kevin Durant, just a smaller move, it could be one of those ones that will define their season.
Over at Locked On Heat, we talk about different kinds of trades that they can make every other day, it seems like. So there's definitely
what's a medium trade? Give me a medium one.
I would look at somebody like a John Collins or something like that. Okay. Somebody who could, like a Miles Turner, somebody that could. The thing with Miami is that they signed so much of their guys over the summer, they can't be traded until like December and January, like Dwayne Dedmon, Caleb Martin, Victor Oladipo, who are like okay players, but they got nice chunky contracts, like $4 million, $6 million, $8 to $9 million contracts that you can kind of stack together, pair with some draft picks and make that move. So that's why I think a midseason trade makes more sense, because right now they just don't really have any contracts that they can deal with. And so that's kind of where I think they're going to go. But yeah, we'll see. Like I got 3 more teams that we just don't have time to do, or I'm just not that interested in talking about.
No. Hold on. We have time. We have 3 teams that Wes is going to snub from his top 4 contenders list. Don't let him weasel out of this.
Dallas, can they give Luka enough help? Memphis, can they continue to get better and grow?
Oh, Memphis is not happy with you, man. Memphis is they're throwing some bad reviews on this show.
All I know is that your own organization doesn't treat your team like they're ready right now.
I love that you're trying to shield yourself with that.
They're moving off of high-level contracts. They're drafting rookies to replace them. That's all I'm saying. The Grizzlies don't believe in the Grizzlies.
Wow. Spicy.
Coming in hot. And then Brooklyn. Like, first of all, I don't want to talk about Brooklyn anymore. And second of all, just can we wait for your players to actually play basketball games before we put you in the contender category? That's all I'm saying.
All right, it's fair.
Breakout candidates. That's a fun conversation. That's the one we're going to have next here on Locked On NBA. Back here, Locked On NBA, Wes Goldberg with Adam Mares. It's Friday, so we're counting down to the weekend. And we do it the same way every week here on Locked On NBA Fridays. Our top 5, Adam, and this week we are doing our top 5 breakout candidates for the 2022-2023 NBA season. Let's get right into it. Who's your 5th breakout candidate?
Well, Wes, you know that I've been watching a lot of Eurobasket lately. I'm deep into Eurobasket, which, by the way, it really is the greatest tournament nobody's watching. It's so much fun. Way better than March Madness. Honestly, better than the NBA from like October to December.
Does Dennis Schroeder win MVP?
Dennis Schroeder's been fantastic, but not quite as good as his teammate Franz Wagner. One of those guys might show up on this list a little bit later. But first, the honorable mention. I just have one. I have to give a shout out to my guy. You know, a nugget always has to make the list here. I've always got to have a nugget. Yep. Bones Highland, averaging 10 points off the bench for the Nuggets last season. He's in line for a role and minutes increase this year. And if you look at his numbers over the last 3-4 months, it was something like 14 points per game. He's a heck of a player. He can do a little bit of everything, and Denver needs him. This is not one of those ones where it's like, well, if he doesn't play well, they'll go somewhere else. There's nowhere else to go. He's going to be a big piece of this roster, and I think he is probably a 13, 14 point per game scorer. That's on everybody's radar.
They moved off of Morris. Maybe there's an internal belief in Bones Highland that he's ready to step up. I hope you're right. He's on my dynasty fantasy basketball team, so I need him to have a Hall of Fame level career.
All right, my actual list, though. Number 5, like I said, I've been watching a lot of Eurobasket. Some guys have impressed. One of those guys, Alperen Şengün. Now, Şengün had a good rookie season last year. He flashed. Like, he's not somebody that's completely off the radar. But could year 2 be the year where it's like, okay, right now you're looking at all the young players over there. Who's the guy? Who are you building around? See which guy is sort of rises to the top. I would not be surprised. I know this is a hot take given some of the players that are out there. Jalen Green, Josh Christopher, some of these other names, Kenyon Martin Jr., Kevin Porter Jr. I think that he might be the guy that this year, by the end of the next year, we're talking about, is Şengün actually the best player on this team? Is he the top young player ahead of Jalen Green? I like Jalen Green, by the way. I think he's very good. I think it'll actually be more
like, just drafted a guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's even that, but I think by the end of this year, you might that might be a little bit of a conversation.
Okay. All right, I like it. We got lots of predictions, lots of takes on a Friday show. Adam's feeling saucy. Who's next?
This one's crazy because he's already broken out. So the numbers might not be a numbers breakout, but one of my takes this year, and it's the dumbest take you can make. This is the dumbest take you can make. Are we sleeping on the Sacramento Kings?
Yes.
Nobody has ever said that and not regretted it.
I predicted them to make the playoffs a couple weeks ago with you.
And here I am saying that De'Aaron Fox might be in line for a little bit of a breakout season. Ooh. They made the trade. They kind of went all in on him and Domantas Sabonis. It didn't work out beautifully last year. They didn't end up making a playoff push the way they were hoping. But maybe with a training camp, you've seen them together at Summer League. They're all hanging out. They're trying to create this culture there in Sacramento. I wouldn't be surprised if De'Aaron Fox has himself a nice season. I'm not saying statistically it's going to be meaningfully different. I mean, he averaged 25 points per game 2 seasons ago. He averaged 7 assists 2 seasons ago. Like, he's put up big numbers before. But this might be the year where that's tied to winning. And look, 25-7, 25-8, those are great numbers.
Yeah.
And if you just add a little winning, I think people will start to look at him differently.
Winning matters, right? If you're putting up empty stats on a bad team, nobody cares as much. Who's next?
Next guy I've got this one. Now we're getting to the 3 I'm buying here. The next one I have, Donovan Mitchell did not go to the New York Knicks. He went to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So now all these Knicks players who were just trade fodder, maybe they're actually in line to break out. And who better to break out? Quentin Grimes, who I am buying. I love Quentin Grimes. I think he's a great player.
So do the Knicks, apparently. He was untouchable.
Yeah, he's untouchable for good reason. We're going to find out. We went from making fun of the CAA-led Leon Rose and the rest of the front office. Maybe they were just mad scientists, mad geniuses, as Quentin Grimes breaks out as a great two-way player.
There was so much positive PR around Quentin Grimes this summer. Like, at the point to, like, if he doesn't average 30 a game, I think it's going to be a disappointing season.
I'm telling you, though, here's the thing. He's actually good, because I'm with you on this, like, Lakers-Knicks media machine, and we got to talk about this. He's actually good. And he was very good at Summer League. I think I like his skill set. It translates to the NBA.
He just can't he can't be Talen Horton-Tucker 2.0.
I don't think he's that.
I don't think he's that either. But they're treating him like that. They're treating him like that. It's
number 2 for me. We're getting deep into Eurobasket now. The Michael Jordan of the Eurobasket this season, Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen, again, another guy that is terrible for you to go all in saying he's going to have a breakout year. But look at Markkanen got his start on a very dysfunctional Bulls team.
Yep.
Then he goes to the Cavs and has a very good season, playing out of position a little bit, but still has a great season with a bit of a healthy organization. I believe Utah is going to be a healthy organization this year, albeit one that's probably tanking, and he'll get a lot of opportunities to show what he can do. And what I saw in Eurobasket was a player that had really untapped skills and potential. And I think this could be a year where on a bad team, we're looking at it and going, wow, Lauri Markkanen, good player.
That Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen two-man game is going to be the crux of the entire Utah Jazz offense. So there will be opportunities there, right? Just
all I'm saying is it's crazy. It's crazy that the Cavs included so many picks along with the 2 best players in the trade. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Next and final one. This is the last one.
This is my guy. It's a love affair right now watching this guy play in Eurobasket. I had no idea. I'm not going to lie to you, Wes. I watch a little bit of Orlando Magic. I don't watch a lot of it. Franz Wagner, total hooper.
I love this pick.
Unbelievable skill set watching this guy. Just no holes. It's not that he's like, okay, great at shooting, great at defense, great at rebounding, great at, off the dribble, passing, whatever. It's that he's good at all of those things. And I would say very good at all of those things. I am so impressed with his complete skill set. And you watch, I mean, he's at the age where, these guys start to make big leaps. And by the way, I think he made a leap last year. It just was so under the radar. You didn't notice it unless you were watching the Magic closely. He's a hell of a player. I expect him to become, can I say household name? Because it's Orlando. I don't know. But I expect him to be a guy that people in the know are talking about as a very underrated player and a rising star.
Yeah, I mean, we think about last year's class, we think about Evan Mobley, and we think about Scotty Barnes. I think those two guys, maybe first and foremost, people in Houston would argue Jalen Green, people in Detroit would argue Cade Cunningham, but to me, like, Barnes and Mobley are sort of the guys that we talk about the most out of last year's class. Franz Wagner deserves to be in that conversation. He had a great rookie year. And
15 points.
I love him. I love his game. I was doing a deep dive on him when I was covering the Warriors. When they had an opportunity to take him, they take Kuminga instead, not knocking that pick. But I loved Wagner since the draft process. I think it's a home run for Orlando. I love that he's your number one. I think he could be a breakout. Orlando could be kind of sneaky good this year too, which would also help.
I kind of like Banchero Wagner as like a core. Yes. It's interesting to me.
Best young wing combo in the East outside of Tatum and Brown, perhaps.
There you go.
I don't know. All right, that'll do it for us today. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On NBA wherever you listen to podcasts for 30 minutes of the NBA's top stories every day. Until next Friday, you can find me over at Locked On Heat. Adam is over at Locked On Nuggets. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day.